Purdue Pharma is negotiating a multi-billion-dollar settlement to resolve about 2,000 lawsuits against the company. The drug maker introduced OxyContin in 1996. The drug has been blamed for sparking the prescription opioid crisis here in the U.S.
According to the CDC, since 1999, more than 200,000 people have died from overdoses related to prescription opioids. With us now is Lenny Bernstein. He's a reporter at the Washington Post. Thank you so much for joining us, Lenny.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So remind us again who the Sacklers are and describe their role in all of this.
The Sacklers are the family that controls Purdue Pharma, which is, as you just said, the maker of OxyContin. The family, it's a privately held company. The family has controlled it since the 50s, and it is, for better or worse, seen as the sort of face of the prescription opioid epidemic, the spark that began this whole thing.
Yeah, and not just that, you know, thanks to some lawsuits, it's been revealed, or at least it's been reported, that there were emails sent around that indicated that perhaps members of the Sackler family knew that this was becoming a problem and weren't really actively figuring out a way to stop it. So what makes your reporting so interesting is that you've really taken a look, you've analyzed the settlement negotiations, and it sort of looks like the Sackler family may come out, well, not so shabbily. I was going to say may come out on top, but they're going to do all right.
They are going to do all right if the current terms of the deal go through. They would be expected to put in $3 billion of their own money, which is what some of the plaintiffs have insisted on in these lawsuits. Others want a lot more, so this deal is far from done. But yes, they would sell their company. Obviously, that's taking a big hit. They would sell their international drug company. That's another big hit. But the money that they have put aside into personal accounts would only go down by $3 billion if the current terms end up being the agreement.
Like $3 billion is a lot of money, so I shouldn't. But this is an extremely wealthy family, right, who, you know, some have accused of not only, you know, contributing substantially, almost creating the opioid crisis, but then benefiting from the opioid crisis on sort of the back end with, you know, addiction treatment places and so on and so forth.
Right.
Yes, if the emails that we have seen produced in some of the lawsuits by Massachusetts, New York, and others turn out to be true, what you've got there is a picture of a family that knew that there were problems, and yet continued to try to persuade physicians to use more OxyContin, give it to more people, and at higher doses, and that is what enrages a lot of people who have been involved in the epidemic or have lost loved ones in the epidemic, particularly the prescription side of the epidemic, because the idea that company executives knew but turned their heads is something that people can't really abide. There are lots of other companies involved. There's blame up and down the supply chain of prescription opioids. So it's not just the Sacklers, it's not just Purdue, but it is what seems to bring out the rage in this issue.
Yeah, and we should sort of underline these are the accusations against the Sackler family. Right. You know, and accusations are what they are.
Right. So Lenny, essentially what you're saying is they're not going to be able to hold on to the money that they've made off of selling these drugs.
No, I don't think that that's clear yet, because between 2008 and 2016, the Sacklers voted to move about $4.3 billion out of the company and into their own personal accounts. So that is what the plaintiffs are after. They're saying this is not right. You have taken the profits of this, put it in your own personal accounts, and now you're willing to give up the company. That's not enough.
That's interesting, because essentially what you're saying is that they've made all of their billions of dollars, they've left the company, and that's fine. Go ahead, break it up.
The company needs to pay for it.
Right, but we're still going to profit and continue to profit and be wealthy off of the sale of this drug that has devastated the lives of millions of people.
And then what about this bit about the public trust settlement sets up pay for the antidote drug, right? So the idea is that the drug that helps people break their addiction with OxyContin, the settlement would pay for that. But is that also provided by Purdue?
Yes, I want to be clear first that these Sacklers would be giving up their company. That's certainly a loss there. The company would go into bankruptcy. They'd be giving up their international company, Purdue Pharma. That's a loss there. So the idea, and this is complicated, is that the company would declare bankruptcy and then it would reemerge as a public benefit trust under the control of the bankruptcy judge and several trustees who he or she would appoint. And then this trust would produce both addiction medications like buprenorphine and opioid overdose antidotes like naloxone, and then another one that the Sacklers that Purdue has in development. The problem is none of them have been approved yet. So over-the-counter naloxone would be a great thing, but it hasn't been approved yet. This nalmefene that is supposed to reverse fentanyl overdoses would be wonderful, and they'd be producing it and distributing it across the country for free, but it's not been approved yet. We don't know if there are going to be any problems between here and there, so it's awfully difficult to value it for the purposes of the settlement.
Right.
So, Lenny, what happens if there isn't a deal reached?
If there is no deal reached, two things are going to happen almost certainly. The Sacklers will declare bankruptcy. They will take Purdue into bankruptcy with no deal. And then, as you know, in sort of a typical bankruptcy, everybody starts jockeying for the proceeds. They'll be selling off the company in parts. Creditors will be fighting with the cities and counties to try to get some fraction of the company. The company asserts that it would be something on the order of about 10% of what it would be worth if they took it into bankruptcy with a deal. The other thing that would happen, perhaps not to Purdue, but to everyone else, is that these trials would go forward. And those are scheduled to begin in October. There are lots of defendants there. McKesson, Johnson & Johnson, a lot of other big, large companies are going to face trial in Ohio beginning in the middle of October.
Well, I mean, you can see the ways in which a settlement would benefit the people who have suffered as a result of this epidemic. But, like with all things, there's, not everything's not always perfect, and your reporting really sort of illuminates that. Thank you very much, Lenny.
Thanks for having me.